Welcome into Jungle Tales, a Pirate Baseball podcast. It is game week, episode 15 of the show, as we're coming to you here on Monday, February 10th. The Pirates will, of course, begin the 2025 season this Friday afternoon, weather permitting, of course, against the George Mason Patriots out of the Atlantic 10. And right now, to talk about the Pirates, I would like to welcome in from ESPN Plus, the color analyst over the last few years, and that is Mike Mullis. Mully, we appreciate your time.
Absolutely, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing well. I hope you are. And,
Yeah.
obviously so much newness as you take a look at Cliff Godwin's ball club entering year 11. And, one of the things that, that has been consistent is just the body of work that Cliff and Jeff Palumbo and his staff have been able to accomplish. So there are some pieces like a Dixon Williams, Riley Johnson, Ethan Norby that return that you can rely on. So before we dive into all that's new, what are your thoughts on just the program as a whole, but specifically some of those returners that I mentioned?
Obviously the returners, you're losing 85% of your innings from last year as far as the pitching staff goes. You're bringing back three pretty critical pieces, and then some guys that had a fair amount of playing time in Walker Barron and Kobe Wallace, not necessarily an everyday guy, but played much more later. But when there certainly is a core, but Bubba, it's not the core that we've kind of grown accustomed to seeing at East Carolina. A lot of moving parts. The question right now is, how many freshmen in the lineup out of the gate? And, I could speculate based off what I've seen this fall and early spring, but yeah, a lot of moving parts for this Pirate Club.
Yeah, there certainly are. As you mentioned, over 75% of the roster is new. 31 new players to be exact. And in addition to the 31 new players, you have a new director of ops, a new head trainer, a new strength and conditioning coach, new academic coordinator. So the newness doesn't stop at the new roster pieces. You do have the continuity with Jeff Palumbo, Austin Knight, Henry Lartigue, the hitting coach, and so forth. But taking a look at some more of these returners in a little more depth, Dixon Williams, he's a guy that probably only had 10 or 15 ABs, maybe 20 ABs as a freshman, and then last year, hits over 300, and he really got. And I say he got better as the year went along. His numbers did. He had a lot of quality at bats early, but it didn't show up in terms of his batting average.
Yeah, I think big things. Obviously, Dixon is he's the hub in the wheel. The question becomes, can they protect him? In the offensive lineup, and I don't know. I've seen some things that make you feel good. I've seen some things that kind of bring back that a lot of these guys are young, and even the guys that are old are young to the program. So, yeah, Dixon, a very versatile player. Cliff has made no bones about it. You can see him play, any of 7 positions. And I will tell you, I have seen him everywhere but on the mound and behind the plate, between the fall and again, the early spring. But offensively, it's going to become, the teams have to pitch to Dixon because they're fearful of what's behind him. And I think, as the season opens, and at one point, Cliff had even mentioned, maybe leading Dixon off. And that's one of those deals, put your best guy in the one spot, try to get him the most ABs you can get him. But then you got a guy like Riley Johnson there. Of course, Riley, we know his ability with the small game. But I think those two are kind of interchangeable towards the top of the lineup. You would rather have Dixon in RBI position. The challenge becomes after that, you're looking at, again, your most experienced guys and proven producers. It goes to Kobe Wallace, and then then the drop off is to Walker Barron, and then you look at transfers like Boucher, and quite frankly, he's probably the only one that comes in with a tremendous number of ABs. I say tremendous, a reasonable cross section or a reasonable body of work in the AB standpoint. So, that's the whole thing with Dixon. Can they put him in a position to have success and protect him in that lineup?
You talk about Riley Johnson, Riley, of course, a very proven body of work. Highlight reel catches in center field. And, I think to the one that he made last year is actually in a loss against Duke, 4-2 defeat at the hands of the Blue Devils at Clark LeClaire, where he ran one down right in front of the scoreboard in right center field. But Riley Johnson just produces one highlight reel catch after another. And, very high praise from Cliff Godwin with the places coaches has been to say, he's the best center fielder he's ever been around.
Yeah, I would say that, man, we go way back into the program to even find one that comes close, in my opinion. Now, understand center field has been, played at a pretty high level under Cliff Godwin and even going back to Billy Godwin, but he's different. And again, watching him Sunday, got a chance to see some of Friday and all of Sunday's scrimmages this past week, and he's different. And the thing is, he also takes the very difficult play and makes it look easy. He has no question in his mind what his intentions are after he catches the baseball. So, in other words, through having been in the lineup so many times or so many games, his pre-pitch plan is solid. He'll make a play in the gap and no hesitation. He's getting the ball going to the right place, and I'm gonna tell you, we talk about his defense because that's easy, but offensively, I remember last year during broadcast talking about, and I remember what the number was right off the top of my head, but it was greater than 50% of the time that he got on to lead off an inning, the Pirates scored. So I mean, the offensive prowess is also there. And I'm again, man, I haven't watched them this weekend and previous weeks. He is what you've always remembered him to be, regardless of what he's been through physically. And he's just such a gamer, such a great player. And I'm gonna tell you, this team is obviously building back and rebounding from losing a lot of guys. And I mean, we'll talk about it all year ad nauseum, but they're going to really, really miss that dude when this season's over.
Yeah, gamer's the perfect word for Riley Johnson. Riley, going through everything he went through with those shoulders, and having those repaired in the off season, but to do what he did at such a high level, without the benefit of the practice time, it was truly remarkable. And like you said, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it was ridiculous. The stretch that he had there of getting on base, consecutive on base streak, and I think it seems like it was 45, 50 games, perhaps. I mean, it was up there.
Yeah, big number.
Yep. But Colby Wallace, as you mentioned, had I think right around 70 at bats a year ago. You saw him largely in when Jacob Starling went down, coming in to play some third base, and he has the ability to, of course. I saw over the weekend Stephen Igo, hoist the colors, reported that made some very good plays at first base.
Yeah, and I think him being over there as much as they can allow him to be there, in protection of his arm, because they're going to need him, especially early right now, and with the pitching staff a little bit banged up. They're going to need him over there to play first, again, to protect that arm. Really good freshman in Trammell, and I'm losing his first name. Another kid that was really impressive this weekend, although he didn't get any ABs, which is, kind of interesting. But Neil Griffin at third base, he made some highlight plays and he played short last weekend and did the same thing there. So defensively, I think they're where they want to be, at least as good as they can be going into the season. The travel kid is, in my opinion, he is probably, again, a true freshman beyond his years offensively. Switch hitter. I really like him from the left side. Not that he's bad from the right side, but it just seems really easy for him from the left side. And so that, him playing third base could allow Colby Wallace to kind of settle in at first. But again, man, young freshman over there in Irby. I mean, they have options. It's just going to be what growing pain do you want to deal with this week?
Yeah, exactly. That's where I was going with that. That depending on whether there's a lefty or righty on the mound and other variables, you have options. Be it Braxton Trammell, the high school teammate of Sean Jenkins, who we'll talk more about here in a few minutes when we shift over and discuss the pitching staff. But switch hitting third baseman or corner infielder in Braxton Trammell, a guy that can also be seen in left field. I know he's played that in a lot of these scrimmages here in the preseason, and then Colby Wallace, of course, either spot. You mentioned Boucher earlier. He's a Greenville kid. Also had those Tidewater roots and played a couple years at Old Dominion and had a lot of success. It seems like against the Pirates. Certainly had the respect of the ECU coaches. I remember a key situation a year ago when he was issued an intentional walk, but he's someone that from all accounts has an extremely strong arm, one of the stronger arms that we've seen there in quite some time, and will perhaps we'll see, but maybe bring the most pop in his bat out of the shortstop position in the lineup since maybe like Dustin Harrington.
Yeah, with Boucher, it's kind of interesting. Like he, absolutely to your point, he can really, really throw. I mean, he's got a big league arm. I mean, he can really, really throw the baseball. But he, it's going to be interesting. I mean, with him, it's, I guess, Bubba, you would like to maybe see a little bit rangier of a guy there, but if he gets his hands on it, he's gonna have a better than good chance of collecting the out. In his time at Old Dominion was kind of up and down. He finished, I think, the 24 campaign, and he hit like 240, something like that. But for the time he was there, it was in the like 270 range, if I remember properly. The deal is there's also and I'm trying to put this politely, there's a ton of swing and miss. And if I remember right, again, I hadn't looked at the stats again lately, but I would say it was north of 65 swing and miss strikeouts, or 65 strikeouts and like 180 ABs. So that's a little bit of a concern. And obviously, you got to feel like the pitching he's going to see, especially on Friday night in the conference, is going to be significantly better. I've seen him enough this year to know that he's very capable. He had also made a position change at ODU over to first base, which is kind of interesting. But, listen to Coach Palumbo talk and having an opportunity to talk to him about Boucher, I think it's a curiosity right now as much as anything, and also maybe a little bit of necessity. But I will tell you, I've heard East Carolina fans, going back to Turner Brown and then obviously the Joey Brainy years, where they're like, man, can we not get a big shortstop? I will tell you, with him at short and Dixon Williams at second, they are there's some physical cats up the middle this year.
Definitely are, with that all Greenville middle. And in addition to Dixon at second base, you also I've heard some good things regarding Roger Vergara.
Yeah, he's a JUCO. He was a JUCO bandit, and I love those guys. A JUCO guy myself. And talking with Lynn Hartzell, the Region 10 commissioner, who was the baseball director, or however they term him, the commissioner or whatever it is. He was in Eden, Oklahoma, and saw him play against LSU Eunice, which is really, really good junior college baseball. And he was like, man, really competitive, good at bats. And, what I've seen, and again, my opinion doesn't mean it's right. He's been a little bit overmatched, but has figured some things out. You could tell, you can literally see with him the Jeff Palumbo stamp. He is very methodical in how he goes about his business. Good looking athlete, can run a bit. I mean, good player, but it's just going to be can he make that step up in the speed of the game?
In the outfield, we've discussed Riley Johnson. On the corners, you have a lot of options. You have an Eastern North Carolina kid like Braden Burris, who is also in reserve there at shortstop. But a Snow Hill kid and brings a lot to the table in terms of what he offers offensively. With his ability to hurt you with the short game and just some athleticism. And then you have Alex Peltier in right, and I already mentioned Braxton Trammell, how he can go out there and play left field. Keenan Bowman is a name we've heard a lot here in the preseason, who's made tremendous strides from his freshman year to now. What have you seen on those corner outfield spots?
Man, I think you kind of nailed them. It's going to be interesting, and man, it's one of those things where when you have a ton of options, that also kind of means like nobody's won those spots. And I think that the right field spot with Pelletier or Peltier, I'm going to have to figure that out before Friday as to how his name's pronounced. But he's an impressive freshman, another kid that can run, and that's kind of the tune throughout this team, man. They can run. I mean, the top to bottom, they can get around the bags, and I think that'll be a big part of the offensive approach. But I think you see him in right field, Friday, opening day. Left field, man. I really believe it. I think it's who's hot, and again, who's hot meaning off BP and whatever else. And let's face it, really tough situation going into opening day when you're in this position as East Carolina is, where you're probably not getting outside a whole lot with the weather that's coming in. So I think kind of wherever their decisions are right now is going to kind of be where they go, which kind of leads me to believe that you have two options there. If Trammell's at third, then I think Kobe Wallace is at first. If they go Trammell at left and Wallace at third, then they go Irby at first base. Puts three freshmen in the lineup. I'm not so sure that Irby's not in the lineup anyway in the DH spot. Keenan Bowman is obviously an option, but I think it's still, and it will be for a period of time. Like, let's just wait and see. And I wouldn't be surprised if through the first 20 games, honestly, Bubba, when I say this, I wouldn't be surprised to see 20 different lineups, even if it's the same guys in the lineup, just trying to figure out where they fit in the batting order.
Yeah, and a lot of different lineups is something that's pretty common for a Cliff Godwin coach team anyway. But you have had those guys, like a Riley Johnson or a handful of players that have been kind of penciled in certain slots. But very very common to see Cliff try different combinations and very intrigued to see how that works itself out as the season progresses. Shifting over and talking about this and pitching staff, it was announced on Monday morning, via Hoist the Colors Radio and Stephen Igo and Patrick Johnson, their weekly chat with Cliff, announcing that Ethan Norby, would get the ball on Friday, and then the very talented 17-year-old freshman Sean Jenkins on Saturday with TBA for Sunday.
Yeah, you know what, man, and all the years I spent in the dugout and putting together like weekend looks, it's like the last thing you really want to do is have a TBA anywhere in there, and so for the fans that are kind of like going, okay, I thought Norby was going to be the stopper, and look, all those things were intended. You have an injury to the left-hander. Was it Tower from?
Yep, Ryan Towers from LMU.
Yeah, Loyola, the big right-hander from Texas A&M's having issues. They're unfortunately they're a little bit beat up this early. I think Jake Hunter is the wild card. I think you see him in a close game. I think he's your guy out of the pen, and you would like to use him in like the seventh, and maybe he gets you to the tape, to the finish line. But it's going to be interesting. I mean, a lot of freshmen went Sunday. Some, quite frankly, better than others. Mixed in there, Jake Hunter didn't start that. Jade Winter's kind of a wild card in the whole deal. The other one is I'm drawing a D'Lo, the kind of stumpy right-hander. He doesn't seem to have picked up much from where he was last year from a velocity standpoint. So I mean, it's going to be interesting. I will say, and I know that probably anybody listening to this is an avid enough fan to recognize that the job that Cliff and AK have done managing quote unquote thin staffs, there's probably nobody better. So it's just kind of, pick and choose, and you hate to do that early in the year. And I will tell you, coming out of the fall, I was like, no question about mine, the strength of this club is that pitching unfortunately, they're a little bit beat up. But it's, and again, to use every coaching cliche in the world, it's not about being great now. It's about being great late in the year. And these guys get healthy and come back. I mean, I think we're probably 20 games into this thing before you start to get those guys back. And quite frankly, going into conference play will be a little bit of a break for this club when you're looking at George Mason, who it's a rebound year for them. They had a tough year last year. They were really beat up. Year before that, they, nearly won a regional. And then you look at turnaround, you got Campbell, then you've got Carolina, then you've got Wilmington, and then you go Keith LeClaire Classic with three really good clubs. It's kind of a murderer's row early on. Oh, and by the way, you get through with that, and you got Coastal.
Yeah, that 3-game series with the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers, one that the fans have been clamoring for quite some time, is finally a reality, and will continue next year down in Conway at their beautiful ballpark. But you referenced a lot of names there. So many from the portal. You said Ryan Towers. Unfortunately, that injury is not serious. And the MRI, according to Coach Godwin, came back clear. And we'll see how long Ryan's out. But you have Brad Pruitt from Oklahoma. What have you seen from him in the preseason? And you also mentioned Brett Antolik, who will hopefully be back in early to mid-March, from what we're hearing. And he has stuff that's there, and it sounds similar to Sean Jenkins.
Yeah, excuse me, no. And Tolik I was very impressed. Now, he came up, a little beat up in the fall, I guess probably 3 weeks in, and still fighting that same injury. The kid from Oklahoma, I've seen him a time or two, but quite frankly, Bubba, nothing that just jumps off the page at me as being like, yeah, that's the guy. Now, I do know that they thought highly of him, but when you're out there in the fall, man, and you're seeing literally with 31 new bodies, and now I guess they got 27 of those guys around and 21 freshmen. Like, I'm out there trying to look at the online roster, and so it was tough to kind of figure out who's who, but those two guys could be huge pieces. And again, two guys, even going back to Towers, I mean, he's really good. And he gets back. It's a left-handed look. It's a little bit different. It's not the velocity's not going to blow you away, but he can pitch. And I'm going to tell you that freshman group, obviously Sean Jenkins is the bell cow, but that freshman group, explosive stuff, big velos, good secondary stuff. It's going to be a command thing. Like, they got to, and they're going to be in situations they've only dreamt of ever being in, and now they have to practically do it. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how it all shakes.
Certainly will. One of the portal kids that we have not referenced, and that's the lefty from Liberty, and that's Nick Moran.
Yeah.
What can you tell me about Nick? I know he pitched very well against the Pirates a year ago before ECU was able to get to him in the middle innings.
Yeah, another kind of I don't want to say pitch backwards left-hander, but that's kind of his deal. Not going to blow you away, but a ton of pitchability. And again, another guy that maybe he takes the ball against Campbell on Tuesday would be as good a guess as any right now. Doesn't mean he won't be available this weekend. You got to remember, this Pirate staff only has, I think, Bubba, going into the weekend, 4 healthy left-handers, and maybe it's 5. So, and some of those are freshmen, and so it's a limited number of guys that can give you that southpaw look. And again, we know that Cliff and staff are all about pitching a matchup.
Definitely, and Gabe Beschloss, a freshman, is someone Cliff referenced today in his couple interviews that he did with local radio, and just saying that he will certainly pitch. And in addition to Gabe, you have some freshman names like Tyler Brashear, Ian White, and Lance Williams, who we've heard about his electric arm. What have you seen out of those guys?
Saw all of them this weekend on Sunday specifically, and yeah, very capable, but would do freshman stuff. And as a guy, and again, you don't mind a guy missing the zone, but when it's non-competitive, it doesn't help you to set up the next pitch. That's the aggravation. There were moments of brilliance followed by moments of ignorance, and it's just part of dealing with freshman arms. But for the most part, Brashear was pretty good. The guys you just mentioned they're capable. There's no question. And again, where we see them the first 20 or 30 games will not be what we see the back end of the year. So, I think this club is very talented, very capable. I think, quite honestly, we're going to have to win a bunch of, 5-3, 4-2 games early. And the pitching's going to maybe have to carry, but that is always the deal coming out of the gate. Hitters are always a little bit behind pitchers. So, but I think all of those freshmen and the entirety of this freshman crowd, again, Burris is a good player. He's not the toolsiest guy you've ever seen, but he's one of those old school, kind of stereotypical or prototypical Greene County baseball rats that can play left field. He can play third, second, short. I mean, he'll go out there and play hard and do more things right than wrong. But I just think it's going to be the Pirate faithful have to be a little bit patient and understand that, this turnover was significant.
Definitely was. And taking a look at another arm we've not mentioned, and so many of these guys, are your prototypes, if you will, from the standpoint of being 6'3", 6'4", anywhere from 200 to 220 or 25 pounds. And you have Ethan Young out of Catawba Valley Community College. He's another one, much like Jenkins and Tolick, that runs it up there into the mid 90s.
See, I've not seen that velocity out of him. I've seen him in the 90s, kind of low 90s, kind of a funky breaking ball. It's more of a true, like old school 12-6 breaking ball. Did not have his best outing this yesterday, but the stuff's there. And again, he's going to make a speed adjustment. The mistakes, because of him being, even low to mid 90s, the mistakes he got away with in JUCO, he'll not get away with against the better teams that they're going to play. So, but that breaking ball's, it's a spinner. It's got some spin rate. It's got some vertical tilt to it. It'll be interesting to see how he does. Again, maybe I'm a little bit biased because I saw him yesterday. It was not his best day.
Other newcomers, freshmen, or actually, excuse me, JUCO, like Trevor Jackson, and any of these names that I've failed to mention that you've seen something from them here in the preseason or back in the fall.
Not a JUCO. The what appears to be the third catcher, and potentially maybe even get some DH time. 66, and I'm sorry that if he's listening, I'm sorry. I don't remember his name, but big body catcher. Man, he hit a ball up into the trees on Saturday, and hit two balls really hard yesterday. So it'll be interesting to see where, it will, where and how that plays out. For Cliff to have him as a third catcher, and with in my opinion, with the second catcher being the freshman out of Florida, that kid, that dude, he can be offensive. I will tell you the thing with the catching core, Walker Barron can throw, the freshman from Florida can throw, the kid from Boston College, not quite as much. We were a little bit spoiled when you're watching, the guys Wilcoxon and the guys that have been back there for the last couple of years, the way they threw the baseball. It's not quite that, but it's still pretty good.
Yep. 66 that you referenced, John Collins, had heard of that home run over the weekend. And then also, Michael Kalinich, the freshman from Florida, has performed well. We have a question here from Johnny Robertson via YouTube. And Johnny says, do you feel that Riley will have a full green light on the base pass? Clemson center fielder Cam Canarella had essentially the same shoulder injury and went from 24 stolen bases in 23 to 0 last season.
I can tell you ran the bases this weekend. So, do I think that there will be that Riley will be allowed to be reckless? No, I don't at all think so. They're going to have to protect him to a point. Again, let's just use our common sense and go, okay, he goes down. Now you got three new bodies in the outfield, plus offensively you lost a guy with probably as many, if not, well, he's definitely got more ABs than anybody else in the program right now. So I think it's kind of sense and sensibility. You got to kind of pick your spots. But I will tell you, with the kid like him, it's almost like, dude, you got to play your game. We don't want you to get hurt. But if he plays guarded, he could play himself into trouble. Like, you know what I mean? It's kind of like trying to play football and you're scared or whatever. You just got to go play. Do I think he may have less stolen bases than what we've seen in the past? Yeah, potentially, but I think it's going to be situational. I can tell you when they need one, he'll go get it. He's. I don't think they'll guard him that much.
I agree. I think you make some great points there as far as just his style of play and letting him be who he is, and with what he did last year, with two bad shoulders as opposed to now, like Cliff said today, obviously it's never going to be perfect, but it is better, and I would expect to see Riley Johnson style of play from Riley Johnson, no doubt. But someone we have not mentioned thus far is Parker Bird. We talk about the leadership of Riley Johnson, Dixon Williams, Colby Wallace, Ethan Norby, some of those returning pieces. Parker Bird, no, he may not have a ton of ABs, but at the same time, that you can't put a price tag on the leadership and what he brings to the table.
Yeah, and that would be something the staff would have to tell you more than me. Like that's something that you only see as you make the sausage. I mean, I will tell you, I've been impressed with the number of ABs they've given him. And he did have a big knock in Sunday scrimmage. Couldn't remember if it was Friday or Sunday, but yeah, they are committed as he is to them, and that only comes through him proving himself, and we all know that Cliff is big on culture and leadership and character, and all those things are as important as talent. But yeah, Parker is he's a special dude. Like he's what he's not fake with it. Like I had a chance to sit and talk with him for I don't know 30 or 40 minutes not all too long ago. We talked about high school baseball, and he's got that rat tendency. He loves the game, and obviously you don't go through what he's been through if it's anything other. Like you can't like baseball and do what he did to get back. You got to love it.
A couple guys that I inadvertently left out when we were discussing the outfield that I wanted to throw at you right quick. That's Davin Whitaker and Drew Downs. Downs had been a Vandy commit for some time before the Pirates landed him, and Davin Whitaker had a solid summer up in the Cal Ripken League.
Yeah,
I think it was.
I've seen more of Whitaker that kind of comes to mind. Again, quite honestly, Bubba, don't have enough of having seen them to have a real strong opinion either way. But I do know that they're both very gifted guys. But that's what everybody on that roster is pretty good, right? So I mean, I don't have enough to tell anybody that they're both dudes because I just don't know.
And Jack Herring, the Rollin College transfer who played for the Yard Gnomes this summer.
Same deal. I actually saw him more with the Yard Gnomes, and I don't know. I mean, it's such a collection of new bodies, and from kind of where I watch the game from now, obviously as a fan, as a coach myself, but moreover getting ready to do my job on Friday night, like I'm really kind of hyper focused on. All right, these are the 12 or 14 guys that I think will be impactful as position players, and then from a pitching standpoint, it's who do they roll out there, and you just watch them for what you're seeing.
You talk about doing your job on Friday night. Tell us what you can as far as who will be on the call this weekend, and just the plans for the season as far as some of the voices in the booth, and then may you also be on the radio side some as well.
Well, that's funny, Bob. I've been asked that a bunch about doing radio, and I will tell you, as a fan base, the ECU baseball fans should truly understand how fortunate we are. We actually have increased the number of games we're doing this year, And I honestly, I think it's 23 or 25 as opposed to like 19 last year, something like that. So we're going to bring more coverage to ESPN Plus, and it'll be let's see, Friday is myself and Patrick Johnson. That'll be this weekend. Friday and Sunday, we do not have the Saturday game. And then we'll have Darren Vault a handful of times and Evan Budrovich. But as it stands now, I plan to do every home game from the analyst side. So, we'll have fun with it. From the radio side, it's kind of been an ongoing drama, man. And I don't want to say too much or make anybody mad, but it's quite frankly, it kind of seems like it's been kind of the plan is we don't have a plan, and that's maybe unfortunate to say, and I'm just being honest, but I do know that I guess it's Dylan Johnson. I don't know Dylan, and if he's listening, excuse me if I got your name wrong. But that's the guy that's going to come on, and he's got some local ties, and apparently is a fan of the game. I don't think he's done a ton of work as it relates to play-by-play work for radio, nor have I. But I wish him all the best, and I'm sure he'll do great. He'll have Coach O there to anchor that deal, so that always helps when you have a legend in a box with you. But Bub, I don't know how much radio I'll do, if any. But I have made it clear to Clay Walker and the folks at Playfly that I'll be happy to fill in if they get in a bind. But I've got a business to run and coaching at DH Conley, and man, we're looking forward to a great year, and then obviously doing my job for ESPN Plus.
As you're obviously, this is largely a week to week thing as you prep for that week's games, but just kind of, have you had a chance to take a look at the American yet? As far as you have a program like Wichita State, so tradition rich, and they really made some nice strides last year under Brian Green and that regime, and you have USF making a very good hire. Mitch Hanna's coming over from Indiana State, and some programs that will certainly be ones to contend with.
Yeah, I think it's Tulane, USF, and Wichita State are the ones that the Pirates really have to worry about. Memphis had some changes. I mean, listen, man, this conference has been feeding ground for, I guess, if you could still refer to them as the P4. So the number of players that have left this conference, I'm going to tell you the Dos Equis man of the conference might be Charlotte. And the reason being is they had such turnover last year, and their skipper, Robert Woodard, said, hey, we know that this year's an acclimation year, and that's kind of been their model, like, hey, we'll turn it over every other year. And that first year when they turn it over, they expect to take their lumps. The next year, they expect the guys to be caught up to speed. And we also saw Charlotte get really good towards the end of last year. So I think it's going to be an interesting league. I just hope that maybe we can get to a 3-bid league. I don't know that that'll be the case. It feels like a 2-bid league going into it, but there's so much change in college baseball, and the P4 thing may or may not really apply, but you've got the SEC, the ACC, the Big 12, or was it big? Yeah, the Big 12. They're just going to be perennial. You just got to find your way to fight yourself into the dance.
And final thing I have for you here, what about regionally? Of course, early on the second weekend of the season, you have that what's become a tradition now, that traveling series between number 6 North Carolina and the Pirates, which will begin at Clark LeClaire this year and then continue at the DBAP before finishing at the Bosch on Sunday afternoon. And we talked about that series with Coastal Carolina You have a new coach, Chris Marks at Campbell, and then obviously NC State, Duke, Wake Forest. They're all supposed to be strong.
Yeah, man. It's quite honestly, Bubba, it's a tough year to be trying to figure it out. Carolina didn't only kind of quote unquote reload, but they got healthy. Uh, all these other programs that you mentioned are what they are. Campbell is an enigma. Like, who knows what they have? I would guess they're very, very much in the same boat as the Pirates right now, just trying to put the pieces together. Um, but that Carolina series, and honestly, coming off Mason's style of baseball is going to be small ball, run bags, pitch. They're going to, quite frankly, they're going to try to do the same things to us as we're doing to them. Kind of small ball 5-2 or 5-4, 3-2 games is kind of what they prefer. Carolina's going to come in with power arms. That it's going to come down to our young, not only freshmen, but young to the conference, young to this stage hitters. I think our pitchers will be okay against them, but it's going to come down to what those pitchers can do, and what those hitters can do. But they're going to be good, man. Everything I've gathered, and again talking to ACC folks, man, that Carolina team. Now, I will tell you, if you're a betting man, I would bet on UVA to win the ACC, but I do think Carolina is going to be formidable.
And a program that I failed to mention, UNC Wilmington. The Pirates will play the Seahawks 3 times this year. This was attempted a few seasons ago, got rained out in the third matchup, which was scheduled to be in Kinston that time. This time it's at Segra Stadium, and one of 2 games that the Pirates will play at Segra. It's the game against Gardner-Webb that was originally slated for the DBAP. Will be there as well. So another quality RPI game, and that's always a fun time when the Pirates and Seahawks get together.
Well, let's also not forget that UNCW has one of the best players in the country, and the kid. He's from the Outer Banks this year.
Tanner Thatch.
Yeah, Tanner Thatch. He is for real. He will be a nice draft pick. And by the way, they're just good, right? They're just top to bottom good, and they very well coached with Randy Hood, and I mean, that crowd. It's kind of funny. They always kind of lay in the weight, right? They're like the lion in the high grass, and when they get their chance, man, they can get you. And yeah, that's going to be a big series. Listen, they're all big. I mean, where do I think the Pirates end up at the end of the year? Wins and losses wise, man, I don't think we see a historic season for the Pirates from a win standpoint. Obviously, I feel like they'll be in a position to be, I don't know, 10 12 games over 500, but I think it's going to be a dogfight all the way, with the biggest question being, what does the conference look like?
Well said. And Mully, really appreciate the time tonight, and look forward to having you on periodically throughout the season. As you see there on the screen for our viewers, this week in Pirate Baseball, as we'll take a look back at the week that was, as well as to what lies ahead for ECU in the coming week. And as always, appreciate your time.
Yeah, buddy. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Take care. Pirate Nation, that is Mike Mullis. We appreciate Mully's time this evening as we go through that Pirate roster, and all the newness that is, as we get ready for Friday, as we're now less than 4 days to first pitch against the George Mason Patriots out of the Atlantic 10. A few other news and notes before we wrap up and conclude tonight's show. I saw that former Pirate lefty Carson Wisenhunt of the San Francisco Giants organization, he was one of 20 non-roster invitees to spring training. So you never know, at some point in the 2025 season, maybe Carson will get that call up and give the Pirates 6 players on MLB rosters. Of course, you have Alec Burleson with the Cardinals, Gavin Williams with the Cleveland Guardians, Sean Armstrong with the Texas Rangers, Connor Norby, he and Clayton McCullough joining forces there now with the Miami Marlins. And then who can forget All-Star Jeff Hoffman, as Hoff moved over to the Toronto Blue Jays from the Philadelphia Phillies. Hoff signed for $33 million, a 3-year, $33 million deal for Jeff Hoffman with Toronto, giving the Pirates now 3 players with that organization. Of course, Trey Savage, the first-round draft pick of the Blue Jays, and Carter Cunningham is also with that Toronto organization. Also, in addition to This Week in Pirate Baseball, we will have, beginning tomorrow afternoon, we will have an interview that we will air with new Campbell head coach Chris Marks, taking over for Justin Hare. He had been with Coach Hare there on staff in Bowie's Creek, had been at Purdue for several seasons, and is now back as the head coach of the Campbell Fighting Camels. And we'll have probably about a 10 or 15-minute conversation that we'll play back for you, and that will be recorded, and we'll have that for you tomorrow afternoon or evening with Campbell head coach Chris Marks. We also hope to have George Mason head coach Sean Camp, and then next week on either Monday or Tuesday, we'll have about a 10 or 15-minute chat with the head coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels. Long-time assistant prior to becoming head coach, and the Tar Heels had an excellent year in 2024 that saw them finish up at Charles Schwab Field as part of the CWS. But always appreciate Coach Forbes' time, and we'll again have that chat for you at the beginning of next week as we get you ready for the traveling series between the Pirates and the 6th-ranked Tar Heels next weekend. But for us here at Jungle Tales, a Pirate Baseball podcast, be sure to follow us on social media at Jungle Tales Pod on Instagram as well as X, and then on YouTube, Facebook, and Spotify. We can be found by simply searching Jungle Tales, a Pirate Baseball podcast, and you should see a logo similar to the one that you see there on the screen. Be sure to click like, follow, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you're alerted anytime we go live or upload new content. We will be at Clark LeClaire Stadium for opening day, and we'll have some sights and sounds from around Clark LeClaire as the Pirates take on the Patriots. But for Mike Mullis, I'm Bubba Rosenbaum. You've been listening to Jungle Tales. We'll talk to you soon. And as always, go Pirates.